the casebook of Sherlock Holmes, 1927, episode 6. The Creeping Man. Welcome back, fellow detectives. After witnessing the elaborate physics of Thorbridge, you've seen Holmes prove suicide staged as murder. Today's case ventures into even stranger territory, where a distinguished professor begins exhibiting bizarre, animalistic behavior that threatens both his sanity and his family's safety. Have you ever watched someone you respect transform into something unrecognizable? Prepare for one of Holmes's most unsettling cases, where the pursuit of youth leads to horrifying consequences and where science without ethics creates monsters. Picture yourself at 221B Baker Street in September 1903. Watson is reading when Holmes tosses him a letter. Watson, what do you make of this? It's from Trevor Bennett, a young man in Camford. His employer, Professor Presbury, has been exhibiting increasingly bizarre behavior, and Bennett fears for everyone's safety, including the professor's daughter, to whom Bennett is secretly engaged. Watson reads aloud, "Dear Mr. Holmes, I write regarding my employer, Professor Presbury of Camford University. For the past fortnight, he has been acting most strangely, disappearing at odd hours, exhibiting violent mood swings, and most disturbing of all, his daughter has twice seen him crawling on all fours outside her window at night, his face twisted into something barely human. The family dog, normally devoted to him, now attacks him on sight. I fear Professor Presbury is going mad, but I don't know what's causing this transformation." Holmes's eyes gleam with interest. A distinguished academic reduced to crawling like an animal? His own dog attacking him? Watson, this promises to be most singular, and there's a romantic complication. Bennett is engaged to the professor's daughter, but hasn't informed the professor yet. Fear of the father's reaction, no doubt. Think about this setup, detective. A respected professor whose behavior is deteriorating rapidly, exhibiting animalistic characteristics. Is this mental illness, brain disease, or something even more unusual? They travel to Camford and meet Trevor Bennett at his lodgings, a serious young man in his late 20s, clearly distressed. "Mr. Holmes, thank you for coming. I'm at my wit's end. Professor Presbury is not just my employer. He's been like a father to me. Watching him deteriorate like this is agonizing. Tell me everything," Holmes requests. "Start from when you first noticed changes." Bennett explains, "Well, it began about 2 months ago, shortly after the professor returned from a trip to Prague. He'd been gone for a fortnight. Said he was consulting with colleagues about research. But when he returned, he was different." "Different how?" Watson asks. Bennett struggles to articulate. "Physically, he seemed more vigorous, almost unnaturally energetic for a man of 61. But his personality changed drastically. He became secretive, irritable, prone to violent outbursts, and then the strange behaviors started." Can you sense the timeline's significance? The changes began after a trip to Prague. Whatever happened there transformed the professor, but what could cause such dramatic personality and behavioral shifts? Describe these strange behaviors specifically, Holmes prompts. Bennett's face shows remembered horror. 3 times now, his daughter Edith has been awakened by sounds outside her window, which is on the 2nd floor. She looked out to see her father crawling up the ivy like some kind of animal, his face contorted, eyes wild. The first time, she thought she was dreaming. But it's happened 3 times. "And the dog?" Holmes asks. "You mentioned the family dog attacks him now." Bennett nods. "Roy has been Professor Presbury's devoted companion for 5 years, but now whenever the professor appears, Roy goes berserk, snarling, lunging, trying to attack him. We have to restrain the dog. It's as if Roy doesn't recognize him anymore." Think about what this suggests. Dogs have extraordinary sense of smell. If Roy no longer recognizes the professor, perhaps the professor's scent has changed. But what could alter someone's scent so dramatically that their own dog perceives them as a stranger or a threat? Holmes requests to meet Professor Presbury directly. They visit his home, a comfortable academic residence near the university. The professor receives them in his study, and Watson immediately notices something off about the man. He's physically vigorous, almost too vigorous, moving with restless energy, inappropriate for his age, but his eyes are strange, sometimes focused and intelligent, other times distant and almost bestial. "Mr. Holmes," Presbury greets them with forced courtesy. "Trevor told me you were coming. I assure you there's nothing wrong with me. I'm in perfect health. Better than I've been in years, in fact." His voice has an edge, defensive and aggressive. Holmes observes him carefully. "Professor, your family and colleagues are concerned about recent behavioral changes. Trevor mentioned you've been seen crawling outside your daughter's window at night." Presbury's face flushes with anger. "Ridiculous. Trevor is imagining things. I've been working late in my study, nothing more. Perhaps Trevor is jealous of my renewed vitality." But then something extraordinary happens. The family dog, Roy, is in the hallway and, hearing the professor's voice, begins barking furiously. The professor's expression changes. His face contorts, teeth bare slightly, and for just a moment, he looks more animal than human. The transformation lasts only seconds, but both Holmes and Watson see it clearly. "Your dog seems quite agitated," Holmes observes mildly. The professor's face returns to normal, but there's fear now beneath the anger. "Roy has become unpredictable lately. I may have to have him put down." The casual way he discusses killing his longtime companion is chilling. This is not the behavior of a man who loved his dog. After they leave, Holmes is silent, thinking deeply. Watson finally asks, "What do you make of him, Holmes? Some kind of brain disease, dementia?" But Holmes shakes his head. The physical vigor argues against neurological disease. Dementia patients don't suddenly become more energetic. And did you notice his movements? Too fluid, too quick for a 61-year-old academic. Something is enhancing his physical capabilities while degrading his mental stability. They interview Edith Presbury, the professor's daughter, a worried young woman in her early 20s. "Mr. Holmes, I love my father, but I'm terrified of him now. The man crawling outside my window at night, that's not my father." His face was twisted, mouth open, eyes wild. He looked like some kind of beast. Holmes asks gently, "Miss Presbury, has your father mentioned anything about his trip to Prague? Any new treatments, medications, or research he's pursuing?" Edith thinks, "He's been very secretive since Prague. He receives packages from there monthly, small boxes that he hides immediately, and every 9 days his behavior becomes particularly erratic. It's like a cycle. Can you see the pattern emerging? Monthly packages from Prague, erratic behavior on a 9-day cycle." Holmes's mind is already forming hypotheses about what those packages contain and why they affect the professor so dramatically. Holmes contacts his network of European informants, sending telegrams to Prague asking about recent medical or scientific activities. Within 2 days, he receives a response that confirms his suspicions. Professor Lowenstein in Prague has been conducting controversial experiments with animal gland extracts, claiming they can restore youth and vigor. Several wealthy clients have visited him, though medical community considers his work dangerous quackery. "Gland extracts," Holmes says grimly. "Watson, I believe Professor Presbury has been injecting himself with some kind of serum derived from animal glands, probably primate glands given his behavior. He's attempting to restore his youth, perhaps to seem more appropriate for his young fiancé." Watson is horrified. Injecting animal extracts, that's incredibly dangerous. The body could react in unpredictable ways. Holmes nods. Precisely, and I believe that's exactly what's happening. The extracts are having physical effects, increased energy, strength, agility, but they're also affecting his brain chemistry, causing behavioral changes that make him increasingly animalistic. Think about what drives someone to such desperation. Professor Presbury is engaged to a much younger woman. Bennett mentioned this, conscious of his age, wanting to be more vigorous and youthful. The promise of a treatment that could restore youth was irresistible, but he didn't consider the consequences. Holmes devises a plan. We need to catch the professor during one of his episodes and confront him with evidence. According to Edith, his behavior worsens on a 9-day cycle, presumably when each injection wears off and he needs another. The next episode should be tomorrow night. We'll conduct a vigil. That night, Holmes, Watson, and Bennett position themselves in the garden with a view of Edith's window. Hours pass in silent waiting. Around 2 a.m., a figure emerges from the house. Professor Presbury, moving on all fours with disturbing ease, he approaches the ivy beneath Edith's window and begins climbing, not using the ivy as a ladder, but actually climbing the wall itself, fingers and toes finding holes with unnatural facility. My God, Watson breathes. He's climbing like a spider. The professor reaches Edith's window and peers in, his face pressed against the glass. Even in moonlight, they can see his expression is barely human, mouth hanging open, eyes wild, making small grunting sounds. Holmes steps forward. "Professor Presbury, come down at once." The professor turns his head with eerie fluidity, sees them and hisses, an actual animalistic hiss. For a moment it seems he might attack, but then reason reasserts itself slightly and he descends the wall, not climbing down normally, but scurrying down with disturbing speed. On the ground, Professor Presbury crouches, still moving on all fours, regarding them with a mixture of human intellect and animal wariness. "Professor," Holmes says firmly, "you've been injecting yourself with extracts from Lowenstein in Prague. Primate gland extracts. They're transforming you into something inhuman. You must stop immediately." The professor's face shows struggle, human reason fighting animal instinct. Finally, reason wins, and he slowly stands upright, his posture becoming more human. How did you know?" he asks, his voice hoarse. Holmes explains what he's deduced, and the professor's face crumbles. "I was desperate," Presbury confesses, tears streaming down his face. "I'm engaged to a woman half my age. I felt old, tired, inadequate. Lowenstein promised his serum would restore my youth, make me strong and vital again. At first, it seemed miraculous. I felt 20 years younger, but then the side effects began. I would black out, wake up not remembering what I'd done. Edith told me she'd seen me outside her window, but I couldn't remember, and Roy, my poor Roy, doesn't recognize me anymore. Can you imagine the horror of losing control of yourself? Of waking up, not knowing what you've done, slowly realizing you're transforming into something monstrous. The professor's desperation for youth has created a nightmare." Watson examines the professor medically. "How much have you been injecting, and how often?" Presbury explains, "A dose every 9 days, as Lowenstein instructed. I've been doing this for 2 months. Am I permanently damaged? Will I ever be myself again?" Holmes's expression is grave. "The human body is remarkably resilient, but you've been introducing foreign proteins directly into your bloodstream, Watson. What's your medical opinion?" Watson considers. "If he stops immediately and the serum is allowed to clear his system, he may recover, but there could be permanent neurological changes. We won't know until we see how he responds to cessation." The professor agrees immediately to stop the injections. They confiscate his remaining supply and send a strongly worded telegram to Lowenstein warning him that his dangerous experiments are now known to British authorities. Holmes also contacts medical researchers about the case, carefully anonymized, to ensure the scientific community understands the dangers of such treatments. So tell me, detective, should we sympathize with Professor Presbury? He wasn't trying to harm anyone. He just wanted to feel young again, to be worthy of his young fiancée. But his vanity and desperation led him to dangerous experimentation without considering consequences. Where's the line between understandable human desire and reckless endangerment? The case concludes with Professor Presbury slowly recovering over the following months. The animalistic behaviors gradually diminish as the serum leaves his system. Roy remarkably slowly begins to accept him again. As the professor's scent returns to normal, it's as if the dog can smell that his master is gradually becoming human again. However, there are lasting effects. Professor Presbury suffers occasional tremors and memory gaps. His personality remains somewhat altered, less confident, more cautious, haunted by what he became. His engagement ends not because his fiancée rejects him, but because he realizes his obsession with appearing young for her was fundamentally unhealthy. Edith Presbury eventually marries Trevor Bennett with her father's blessing. The professor accepts that his daughter loves a man his own age and that this is natural and right. His desperate attempt to recapture youth taught him to accept aging with dignity instead. Holmes reflects on the case. The creeping man demonstrates humanity's dangerous obsession with youth. Professor Presbury wasn't evil. He was frightened of aging, desperate to remain vital, but his fear led him to dangerous experimentation. How many others are pursuing similar treatments, risking transformation into something monstrous? Watson adds in his journal. This case disturbed me more than most. We've faced murderers, terrorists, even supernatural-seeming threats, but watching a good man voluntarily transform himself into something bestial out of vanity and fear, that was uniquely unsettling. It reminded me that sometimes the greatest dangers come from our own desires, not external threats. The case also raises ethical questions about anti-aging treatments. Where's the line between legitimate medical intervention and dangerous experimentation? Presbury sought to recapture youth, but at what cost? His story becomes a cautionary tale in medical circles about the dangers of unregulated treatments promising miraculous results. Years later, Watson learns that Professor Lowenstein's clinic in Prague was shut down by authorities after several patients experienced severe adverse reactions to his serums. Some, like Presbury, recovered partially. Others were permanently damaged. One died. The professor's letters revealed a pattern of deception, promising miracle cures while hiding dangerous side effects. Holmes keeps a small vial of the serum, rendered inert, in his collection of case memorabilia. The creeping man serum, he labels it, represents humanity's folly, the belief that we can defy natural processes without consequences. Youth and aging are part of human experience. Attempting to circumvent them through untested science creates monsters. The case serves as a warning that persists. Treatments promising to reverse aging, restore youth, or enhance human capabilities beyond natural limits often come with hidden costs. Professor Presbury paid with his sanity and nearly his humanity. Others might pay even more. Join me next time as we investigate the Lion's Mane, where Holmes, now retired and in Sussex, narrates his own case involving a mysterious death on the beach and a killer that's not human at all. It's one of Holmes's most unusual cases, demonstrating that mystery and danger persist even in peaceful retirement. Note: The Creeping Man is one of Conan Doyle's most science fiction-influenced stories, exploring themes of anti-aging treatments and the ethical limits of human enhancement. The story reflects early 20th century anxieties about glandular therapies and rejuvenation treatments that were popular despite being scientifically dubious and often dangerous.